Fadi, internet governance seems to have taken center stage here in Buenos Aires, your initiatives. We heard a lot about the meeting in Sao Paulo planned for April 2014 that you played a major role in making happen. There was a very well-attended meeting, which was basically scheduled the day before, dealing with the very issues we're talking about with internet governance, with ICANN defining itself, helping to shape the future. Was that scheduled because you got a sense that the community felt, whether rightly or wrongly, that it was sort of being left behind?
There is no question that this meeting was instigated through the listening we did all day on Tuesday and Monday as well to our community, saying we are the marrow of ICANN's multi-stakeholder approach. And they are. Our community has been working on internet governance for many years. We're not starting something new here. Many of the positions that even we took in the Montevideo statement have existed and been talked about for years. People have devoted many, many years and efforts in their lives over the last 10, 12 years on the issue of internet governance. All we've done is moved to protect ICANN's core mission, energized the global community to work together on these issues, and now we came here to Buenos Aires, to our home base, to our community, so that we can mobilize together and ensure that in the next 2 years our voices are heard, are united in the support of two key things. One, of the continued model of internet governance that calls for distributed institutions and distributed organizations that work together to complete the picture. We do not need large centralized institutions. We need the current model that is highly distributed to be efficient and to be working and to be addressing all the things on the global discussion. And secondly, that whatever we do stays rooted in the idea that all stakeholders must be at the table, not one kind of stakeholder and not any one stakeholder, but all stakeholders on an equal footing participating in the dialogue and in the policy making that drives internet governance globally.
So the board has been closely aligned and in communication with Fadi during this whole period. Been a very active period for the past few months, and very, very supportive. We have not only been watching the action with respect to the new initiatives and the big, broad issues that are being engaged, but we've also been very mindful that in that process we must not lose the focus on our primary mission. And so we know how sensitive everybody else is. Nobody is more sensitive about it than the board. And so we are at the same time being very supportive and providing resources and engaging in the dialogue about the initiative. We are at the same time being extremely watchful and attentive to the primary mission that we're involved in.
Fadi, you'll next face the community en masse in Singapore in March. Between now and then, what can the community do to express its concerns, its support, give feedback for your efforts, your initiatives?
We have a number of channels that we're working with the community on now to express where we go from here. The newest channel is onenet.org. OneNet being a platform for dialogue. It expresses a movement that started in Bali of many people in business, in civil society, technical organizations, governments, academics, and others coming together to find a common platform to express our common principles, to express our view of how we're going to work together moving forward in governing the internet. So that's an important initiative, and I think between now and Singapore that the ICANN community is going to work to ensure that our voice as a community, with all of its diversity, is heard through the OneNet as well. Not only through OneNet, but through OneNet as well. And the second area where we will see between now and the Singapore meeting significant work is to watch how the panel that we just announced recently, the panel on the future of Internet governance, evolves and does its work. By the time we meet in Singapore, the panel would have completed its report. And I think that's going to be an important report for next year's dialogue on Internet governance, because we need some frameworks and some blueprints that allow us to coalesce everyone in a substantive dialogue.
Steve, let me pivot over to the new GTLD program. There was a lot of talk during the Buenos Aires meeting about the public auction process, came up at the public forum. Describe to me, if you will, what came at you during this meeting and what this issue is about.
It's actually an issue that's been around for a long time. It's been dormant for a while, and now it's coming back up, and properly so. ICANN will be holding auctions, which is really the last resort for resorting contentions over strings by competing companies that have applications for the same string. Our preference has always been that they should sort it out among themselves, and there's arisen private auctions, but if the parties want ICANN to conduct an auction, we'll do that. Proceeds from those auctions will be a new source of revenue, a new source of funds, and we have committed, and I've made this statement very strongly and firmly and personally, we have committed that we will not just absorb those funds into our general operating fund. We won't even just generally put them into our reserve fund. We'll view this as an entirely separate source of money, and that it needs to be dealt with as such. So that leads to two things. One is we will fence it off and account for it separately, and the other is we will go through a community-wide determination as to what to do with that. That's the question that came up. We took in some suggestions just to start the conversation, but we will formalize that process and deal with it more forcefully over the next several months.
Fadi, on the issue of GTLDs, delegations are now occurring on a very regular basis.
Yes.
The stories, the news stories, the headlines appear to have pivoted from the program itself to what the applicants are doing with these new GTLDs, to the innovation. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, very fair statement, and it's where it needs to be. I think there was a lot of uncertainty in the new GTLD space that has just been taken out. It doesn't mean everything is certain moving forward, but the level of risk and uncertainty as to when the program will be up and running and what will the effect of adding new GTLDs to the route will be, a lot of that angst and that uncertainty is behind us now. Again, we are watching very carefully where we go from here to ensure that we minimize any risks and mitigate them quickly. And therefore the focus, once these risks have been set aside, is now on the effects of these new GTLDs on consumers, on the markets, on communities, and how they will be used. I am really looking forward to this story, because it's a story that people have predicted, people have talked about, but now the rubber has hit the road, and these GTLDs are real, and they're happening. They will reshape how people find things on the internet. And I look forward to see these stories evolve in the market and in communities around the world.
What did you hear, if anything, about the issue of name collisions, which was a big issue for a long time? There was a session during the Buenos Aires meeting dealing with the issue of name collisions. What came at you? Are people generally happy with the mitigation measures that have been laid out?
Indeed they are. I think that the plan that we have laid out and we are running with now is thoughtful. It does not dismiss the potential risks, but understands them and deals with them and mitigates them calmly. security, stability, resiliency. Very critical to our mission, very core to what I'm focused on. I have now formed for the first time an actual security, stability, and resiliency council in my office. We meet on a regular basis. We review every risk, we understand it, and we mitigate it. But I think on the collisions issue, we went through a period where we needed as a community to all come together, listen to each other, and not either dismiss the risks or, frankly, inflate them. Find the right engineering approach, the right calm approach, and I really, on that, I want to commend the new president, the president of our new Global Domains Division, Akram Atalla, and his team for the careful work they did in navigating this important issue.
Steve, from a board perspective, can we say, is it too early to say that the new GTLD program is a success?
I greatly prefer to take a soft approach and wait for others to talk about it. But it is gratifying that it's moving along smoothly, that new GTLDs are coming into the route, that the operations are moving forward. And to use the phrasing that Fadi likes, we've planted the seeds, and we're seeing the tendrils come up, and spring is coming, and we will see what fruits are born.
In Buenos Aires, it was the celebration of ICANN's 15th anniversary.
Yes.
For a guy who's seen the nurturing and growth of this organization, I'm curious about your observations.
Transformations have been tremendous. When ICANN was born, there was no organized funding whatsoever. Vint Cerf went around privately and got some donations from a handful of organizations to pay a few people, and we now are running substantial budgets and substantial professional staff, and embracing the participation of thousands of people from all sectors. We are one of the things that is very evident to us from the board perspective is the maturation as a corporation and operation that meets very high standards, everything from financial accounting and audit to visibility and recording of our minutes and rationales, and gradually improving our procedures at every step. We are now nearing the end of our second accountability and transparency review team process, which is mandated by the affirmation of commitments. The recommendations that came out of the first version and the recommendations that came out of the second incarnation are very forceful, and we're very attentive to those. I don't think that I know any other organization that ascribes to and attains the level of fidelity to mission and highest standards of operation as ICANN.
Fadi, ICANN's 15th anniversary, your first anniversary, your observations after year one?
ICANN as a community, to me, is frankly an amazing discovery. Sometimes I think how Columbus felt when he first landed in some new places, or Marco Polo when he arrived to places and didn't know what to expect, and then made discoveries that were just amazing, very profoundly changing the person that made the discovery, and frankly a lot of things after that. I feel this way. For me, landing in this community from the outside has been a remarkable discovery. I'm profoundly changed by it. I really am, as a person. I'm learning all the time and adjusting the course of my thinking, my analysis, as a result of this incredible openness that we have. I was sitting at the public forum yesterday and watching this remarkable show of complete transparency and openness and equality. There aren't many places in the world where this happens, on simple, much less on very complex subjects like we deal with. I think the biggest, looking forward, the biggest thing I want to invest my time in moving forward, as a person, not just as the president of ICANN, is to ensure that the spirit of the last 15 years continues for the next 15. Because this is what makes ICANN what it is. And that marrow, that special way of doing things, that special way of relating to other people, other communities, is remarkable. And it is what I'll focus all my energy on in the years I still have to serve this community.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.